So I think some people have joined the demo and some are new to this particular session for today, right? So this was the first session that we are going to start with AWS DevOps. Okay. So DevOps over AWS actually. Okay. So whatever the services we learn and the AWS services we learn, everything will be correlated to your DevOps environment. Okay. So before starting anything in AWS, right? What is a prerequisite for a person to learn or start with AWS? Okay, because I cannot jump directly to, or we cannot jump directly to your AWS DevOps services, right? Or at DevOps tools, whatever it is. The first thing, because everybody is coming from different regions and different backgrounds. Like some are like developers, some are like operations engineer, some are even working on AWS services from long back, and some are like from testing or something like that. Some different backgrounds, right? So it's better always try starting our understanding the concepts related to Linux operating system. Okay, because we have to choose one operating system. Without having operating system you cannot run your applications, right? So we have to be familiar with any one of the operating system. It could be a Windows or it could be a Linux. Generally we prefer Linux because most of the market or the industries are occupied with Linux operating system, so we better go with that. And it is so it is not that tough. Yes, it is not that easy like your Windows, because Windows is everything of GUI, right? We have hardly executed some CLI commands, if I remember. Even when you're using your personal laptops, right? We don't go to the command prompt or PowerShell and we execute the commands, right? We don't want to take that headache. Instead of that, we have a GUI, and then I will open the GUI and I will start executing the commands. Okay, not commands actually. I'll be opening some application. So in Linux operating system, the only challenge is, though we have a desktop version, but in productions we don't use a desktop version. We use only a server edition. Server edition in the sense we will execute only commands. We don't have any dashboard or a browser to open, and we don't do like that. Okay, that's the only thing what we have to remember when you're trying to learn the Linux operating system. So what you will learn here? Okay, so in Linux operating system we have to understand each and every point, understanding the architecture of your Linux operating system. What is kernel, what is shell, okay, what is bash shell, normal shell, tickle shell, okay, and why these particular shells are needed in order to communicate to your operating system. What is the backend thing that is happening in the operating system? What commands we have to learn? How to handle the operating system when there is some issue with your application running in? All these things we have to understand. It's not about running only application, right? When it falls into some issue, we have to troubleshoot it. That's a major part, right? If you know what commands we have to execute to troubleshoot, that will be easy for you to identify the root cause. That is a major what do you say, most of the troubleshooting lies in. Okay, we have to know the root cause. So when you will know the root cause, if you know that application log directories, some log locations or some particular locations where you can capture the errors, that's where it is, right? So we have to know the couple of commands and some particular tools in order to run with your Linux operating system. Okay, after Linux operating system will be done, right? We will be starting with shell scripting. Okay, after shell scripting is done, shell scripting is not a pure programming language actually, like classes and all, oops concepts and all. It is just a shell scripting where I will keep it so simple, like what are the commands you are executing on the CLI, right? If you try to put it in a file and if you execute that, that is nothing but your shell scripting. Yes, there will be some conditions, like you say, like loops and all, but still, okay, but still it's nothing but what are the commands you execute on the CLI. For example, I'll show you one. Let's say I'm executing some commands. This is a Linux operating system actually. Okay, I'm executing some commands. Okay, so while executing these commands, if you observe, after executing this command I have to wait for the results, then I need to execute another command. I have to wait for the results and I have to execute another command. So how long you will sit in front of the system for such a long period to execute all the commands? Let's say you have 100 lines of data what you have to be executed. So will you wait for it? Okay, You cannot do that, right? I cannot sit in front of system and wait for the results, each and every output. Instead of that, I will put all these commands in a file, and that file will be executed. That is called as your shell scripting. Simple. Right now I'm telling in this simple word so that everybody can understand. What are the commands I executed now? If you put it in a file and if you execute it, that is nothing but your simple shell scripting. Okay, so that is what we are going to learn. In this writing that particular file, if that is the case, it is not that straightforward, right? We have to follow some syntaxes while writing that file. We have to apply some logic, okay, like conditions, okay, loops and functions. With these three concepts, we have to write our shell scripting. It's not only just copy pasting the commands, but also we have to apply some logic. So when you want to apply some logic, we need to understand about if conditions, else conditions, if else if conditions, and then for loop, while loop, until loop. Okay, and then we have to understand about functions. So this is the whole concept of your shell script. Okay. Yeah. Someone is asking something. Is it, uh, is it Hari? Okay, done. After the shell scriptings were done, then we will step into our AWS concepts. Okay. And before going to Jenkins, Ansible, Terraform, before that we will be going into AWS administration services. So what are the AWS administrative services that we will learn in this course is nothing but console and CLI. So we have to understand how to handle your AWS console and how to do the operations used from the CLI commands as well. Not only from the dashboard, right? Because you cannot use a dashboard in the CI/CD operations, in the automation, right? We have to use CLI commands. So we have to learn the CLI commands as well when you want to do some automation. Because GUI you cannot use it for automation. Obviously, you have to write some commands in order to execute that particular task or to create some resource. That's all. And then IAM. IAM is nothing but identity and access management. I clearly explained in the previous demo what is this IAM is used for. So we will be learning this particular AWS service as well. And one more important service is EC2, which is also called as instances. EC2 instance, nothing but virtual machines. Not only virtual machines, we can also create a bare metal servers as well. That is also possible in EC2. But it is too costly. But we will discuss about that. About when we come across EC2, we will talk about what is on-demand, reserved, spot instance, dedicated host, dedicated instances, bare metal instances, like bare metal servers. How will you try to create? All these things we will cover in the part of EC2. Okay. See why we are doing as a prerequisite, because once you understand about Linux operating system and shell scripting, you will understand what these concepts are all about. Okay, and directly I cannot go to the instances. First of all, I have to explain about what is bare metal server, what is virtual machine. Then I need to talk about how AWS is creating that particular virtual machines in the backend. Right. So you need to understand some concept called hypervisor. What is hypervisor, how it is beneficial for us in order to create a virtual machines, what AWS is trying to do, what kind of hypervisor they are using in the backend. Because you will never come to know what is happening in the backend until unless you work in a on-premises environment, right? Dedicated, okay, without using any cloud. Okay, now we will see what is VP instances, nothing but virtual machines and all. After this concept was done, we will learn about networking, that is called as VPC, Virtual Private Cloud. So before talking about VPC, I have to explain about networking, like what is IP address, IPv4, classes, how many classes we have. Okay, what is CIDR, what is broadcast, what is gateway, what is router, what is switch. I have to explain about that. Then I need to talk about VPC. Okay, we cannot jump into that particular topic because if you don't know the basics, it is really tough for us to understand the actual service in AWS. Any cloud you take. Okay, if you don't know the basics, it is really tough for us to understand that particular service. Okay, so that's the reason I'm teaching about that networking first. Then I will be talking about how to handle the networking in AWS side with the VPC service. Okay, and then storage. Storage, I think some of you people know, like we have different types of storages like object storage, file storage, and block storage. Okay, if you want to handle this kind of functionalities in the AWS, we have S3 bucket, elastic file system, and elastic block storage. So before learning those, we have to understand what is object storage first of all. If you don't know that, you will never understand what is S3 bucket. Okay, so you have to learn about what is object storage, block storage, and file system. Then you will understand what is S3, EBS, and EFS. Okay, and databases. After the storage was done, then we will learn about databases. So in the database, we have two types: relational database and non-relational databases and all. So relational database in the sense RDS. Okay, relational database service like MySQL, MariaDB, PostgreSQL, okay, Oracle SQL, MS SQL. These comes under relational databases. Relational database in the sense simple. All the data which is stored in the database will be in a structured format. Okay, every entry will have some particular link with another table, another entry. Okay, so this is called a structured format. There is a non-structured format which is called as non-relational database. Okay, so we have to CosmoDB, MongoDB. These are the examples for non-relational databases. So we have to understand that what is relational and non-relational database. Then you will understand in what situations you have to use what services. Okay, in all the cases you cannot use RDS service in AWS. Sometimes we have to use different service according to our application requirement. Okay, so you have to understand this. Then coming to the load balancer. So load balancer in the sense diverting the traffic. Okay, so to handle the traffic, input traffic to your service. If you have a single server, that single server cannot handle millions and trillions of requests, right? It cannot handle it. You need a huge server for that. Instead of that, I will reduce the burden of that particular single server by splitting the traffic to multiple nodes. That is called as load balancing. So you are distributing the load to the multiple servers, so that instead of handling all the requests by one server, there are multiple servers who can take the request. That's the purpose of load balancer. So here we have to understand what is OS and ISO model, which we have learned in some BTech or somewhere, right? In our graduation, we have learned about that ISO and OSO model. 7 layers: application layer, session layer, transport layer, data link layer, physical layer. So these are like 7 layers which we have. So in that, if you recall those particular topics, you will understand what is application load balancer, like classic load balancer, network load balancer, and gateway load balancer. Classic load balancer is about to get deprecated, so you should concentrate less on classic load balancer. You have to concentrate more on application load balancer, network load balancer, and gateway load balancer. Okay, so you have to spend more time on this particular load balancer rather than classic load balancer. Okay, still that particular option is available, but it is not that needed. From here on, it is not that needed for us to concentrate more on understanding the features of your CLB, classic load balancer. Instead of that, you can spend more time on understanding the application load balancer, network load balancer, and the new one is nothing but gateway load balancer. Okay, and the containers and orchestration, which is so important in the real-time world also. Like so many applications are getting migrated into the containers. Instead of running on a virtual machines and physical servers, right now the applications are moving into the container level. So we have to learn about this as well. As per the industrial requirement, we have to learn about this, Docker and Kubernetes. Okay, so that comes under containers and orchestration. If you want to do the Docker and Kubernetes in AWS side, it is called as ECS and EKS, Elastic Container Service and Elastic Kubernetes Service. Okay, for only these two services also we have huge openings in market right now. Okay, and which is correlated to that two services is nothing but Elastic Container Registry to store the images. Okay, to store the container related images, we use a specific service called Elastic Container Registry. Okay, those are the three important services we have to learn, and we have huge demand for the people who learn about this particular services actually. Okay, and then cloud formation template. Okay, so cloud formation template is something where you want to create a resource in AWS. So every time you cannot go to the dashboard and remember all the steps what you have followed earlier, right? I want that to be orchestrated. Orchestration in the sense, what you want to do, you will put it in a file, and that file will be given as an input to your as an API call. That mechanism is called as orchestration. So your cloud formation template is nothing but an orchestration tool. But this cloud formation template is especially designed or used by only AWS, not by someone else. If you want to replace that and if you want to manage with a common tool, then we have a, which is most important in the market right now, is Terraform. Okay, if you learn Terraform also, we have huge openings for that. Okay, so Terraform is one of the infrastructure as a code tool where we can manage any cloud. If you learn Terraform, using Terraform we can manage any cloud: AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, any other cloud. Okay, and then we have another functionality called Lambda function. So Lambda function in the sense, I have written some code as a developer. Let's say I have written some code, or as a testing engineer I have written some code. That code I want to execute. So in order to execute that particular code, what you will do in general, you have to create a server, you have to install some operating system. After that, you have to install your language related packages and all, and then you have to run your code. Instead of doing these many things, I just need a platform where I can put my code and execute it. That is called as Lambda service, which is called as serverless architecture. So you are not bothered about the server, the operating system, and the package installation, maintenance, and all. You will run the code and just you will get the results. That's it. For that, if you want to use it, we have to use a Lambda function, okay, which is called a serverless platform. And then monitoring, which is the most important. We are not using any Nagios tool or something. Why? Because to monitor your AWS services and all the services, AWS is providing its own monitoring tool called as AWS CloudWatch and AWS CloudTrail. Okay, so we will be using that particular monitoring tools in order to monitor all the applications, all the services in your AWSs. Okay, so each and every action, who did what, who has created what service, I want to monitor the application, whether this application is running or not. If that application is not running, I want to trigger some particular notification to my team. All these things you can do it from the monitoring and events. Okay, you can monitor your whole services of your AWS and applications running inside that particular AWS services as well. Okay, so for that we have to learn CloudWatch and CloudTrail. Those are the services, monitoring services. Okay, after we learn this particular administrative services, we will learn about Jenkins. Okay, and then it is a CI/CD tool, open source tool. Actually, it is not related to your AWS services and all. It is an open source tool. Okay, why we are using that? Because AWS doesn't have a proper CI/CD operations which we can do. Okay, so that's the reason your AWS is relying on some third-party tools like Jenkins or Travis CI or GitLab CI, whatever you want to use. Okay, so Jenkins is a preferred one. So that's the reason why we are learning Jenkins as a part of this DevOps course. Okay, in the Jenkins we have to understand how to install Jenkins, how to configure your Jenkins, user management, permissions management. Okay, configuring global settings. Okay, then metrics, permissions, actually authentication, authorization, and then plugins. Okay, and then adding some slave nodes to your Jenkins master. All these things we have to understand in Jenkins. Okay, and we have to write some DSL code. Okay, DSL codes like domain specific language. So we need to write how Jenkins files, which is related to a DSL. Okay, and we have to write some Groovy code as well. It's optional actually. Either we can write with through Groovy or we can write with DSL, domain specific language. Okay, and after learning this particular Jenkins, then we will be learning Ansible as well, which is a configuration management tool. Why Ansible? Because Ansible is not a huge setup. It is so simple to configure, install, and maintain it. That's the reason why everybody right now, earlier people used to use Puppet, Chef, and all, CHEF, Chef. But right now everybody is migrating to Ansible because it is maintained by Red Hat, open source, who are contributing to this major part, and then it has huge modules actually. It can handle any resource in any cloud or anything. Okay, instead of using Ansible for managing your AWS infrastructure, try to use Terraform. Use AWS to install some packages, manage some particular things, configuration changes, and all. For that, you use Ansible. Okay, so we have to learn Ansible. We have to understand what is playbooks, writing host file, inventory file, which we call it as inventory files, variables, playbooks, roles. Okay, so we have to write each and every YAML file. Okay, so YAML file is common for each and every tool. For Kubernetes, for Docker Compose file, and for this, we have to write a YAML files. Okay, so YAML file is the most important for us to learn. Before YAML, we have to understand what is JSON, how JSON is bit complex compared to YAML, how YAML is simplifying your job. All these things we have to understand. Okay, so after learning these particular tools, then we will be stepping into AWS DevOps. So the DevOps services are nothing but code commit. Why? Because in code commit only we will learn about Git repository, Git workflow, all these things we will understand as a part of code commit. Okay, instead of using GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket and all, AWS is providing its own Git repository, which is nothing but code commit. Okay, so before learning code commit, first of all, we have to understand Git commands, Git workflow, branching strategy, tagging, all these things we have to understand. Okay, when you write some code, till pushing to the code commit repository, we need to understand each and every point. Okay, something goes wrong, how will you revert back the changes? All these things we have to understand. Stash. There are so many things that we have to understand in Git. After learning Git, then you will understand what is code commit. It is all about. Okay, it's same like your GitHub, but instead of GitHub, we are using a AWS provided GitHub's repositories. Git repository is nothing but code commit. Okay, so before that, you have to understand what is version control system, what is a decentralized version control system, sorry, distributed version control system, centralized version control system. Then you have to understand what is Git SVN. So then you will understand what is a preferred one and which is suitable for us. Okay, so we have to know about few histories as well, like backend functionalities as well. Okay, then code build. If you want to do some continuous integration, we have a service called code build. Okay, so in the actual session, we will understand what is continuous integration and all. Okay, and then we have continuous deploy, and we have continuous code pipeline, and we have code artifacts, and then X-ray. Okay, so this will be the last topics related to our AWS DevOps services. Okay, so this is the entire syllabus what we are looking for. So Linux, shell scripting, AWS administrative services, Terraform, Ansible, Jenkins, and then AWS DevOps. Okay, in that only the Git and everything will be covered. Maven, Git, okay, and then we will be using build tool like Maven, Git repository. Again, I told you like it's nothing but a Git commit. Okay, all these things will be covered as a part of that. And to scan your code, we'll be using SonarQube in order to scan the code. That I will cover as a part of AWS DevOps service itself. Let me just open that. Yeah, as a part of AWS services like code deploy and code pipeline, we will be covering that particular SonarQube code scan. Means what are the code you have written, I have to validate it. Whether written all the, I have followed all the, what is say, industrial standard way of writing the code, or I have followed all the syntax or not. Okay, is there any vulnerabilities? All these things we can identify through SonarQube. Okay, so that SonarQube will be using as a part of our code testing. Okay, we can use any other tool, but it depends like which is tool is suitable and most preferred. We will use that particular tool for us to do the code scanning and all. Okay, so these are the entire topics that will be covered in our entire syllabus. Okay, does anyone have any questions to be asked or to be answered?
So there has been mentioned that Terraform only basics be covered. So
No,
just
no,
want to
no.
know is only the
Yeah,
okay,
Terraform is not a basic level. Okay, so you have to understand how to write a modules. We have to understand how
okay,
to write a functions, how to use functions, how to write a Terraform files, how to apply the logics through the functions. This is so important. Let me show you the documentation of it so that you will have some idea. All
okay,
my data is present in GitHub. Okay, No need to worry about documentations and all. You no need to worry too much about it. This is related to Docker and Kubernetes. And let me show you the content related to Terraform. So Terraform deep dive. Can you see this? Okay, so these are the syllabus which we'll be covering in Terraform. Variables, functions, values, data source, backends, workspace, provisioners, modules, Terraform cloud, Terraform graph, Terraform expressions. Okay, I hope this is enough actually to be learned,
Okay.
and that's what we have. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, yes, Sudhir, thank you.
So yeah, any other topics that you are looking for and that is not covered here? Anything else?
That GitLab thing,
See,
Sudhir, so that you said anyhow you'll be covering as part of the AWS
sorry, your
DevOps
voice is a
Engineer.
bit low. Can you come in front of your mic?
Yep. The GitLab thing also will be covered, right?
See, not a GitLab. See, I will tell you. GitLab is one of the open source tool, right?
Mm.
So instead of using GitLab, if you are using AWS Cloud, we have an internal service called Code Commit. It is something like a GitLab, okay,
Okay.
and like a GitHub, like a Bitbucket. So these are like third-party tools, right? Okay, if
Yeah.
you want to use your own repository in the cloud, then we have something called Code Commit. Okay,
Okay.
yeah. GitLab can do the CI/CD operations. Here we are using code commit, code build, code pipeline. These are all for CI/CD operations. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions or something that we are looking for? One more question: are everybody is like have some expertise or some exposure on the Linux operating system? Any?
Yes.
Anyone? Okay. Maybe one or two people. The rest of the I would just want to know who doesn't have any exposure to Linux operating system, so that I'll get some count. It's not to highlight someone. Just I want to learn so that if no one was there, okay, we can start with one particular level. But even one person is doesn't know about Linux operating system, I have to start from scratch. That might be boring for few of the people, but still you have to bear with me. Okay. Yeah. Even if one person doesn't know about Linux operating system, I have to start from scratch. Installing the operating system, what is operating system, everything I have to explain. Okay, that's all the course is designed is all about. Okay, if everybody knows about Linux, then I can start with one particular stage. Instead of showing the Linux operating system, directly I can show other things in the Linux operating system. That's what I mean to say.
This is Sudhir Bhaskar. Sudhir, good
Yeah,
morning,
Bhaskar.
Sudhir.
Hi.
This is Bhaskar.
Hi,
Actually, we don't
Bhaskar.
have any knowledge about Linux and everything. So I am from
Yeah, that's
mechanical
fine.
background
No
basically.
problem. No
Yeah,
problem. Yeah, I'll be starting with scratch. That's what I told, right? Even if one person is not there, I know now I came to know, right? Few people doesn't know about any Linux operating system. Then obviously I will start from scratch. I cannot skip it.
yeah. Thank you.
No need to
How's
worry.
it going?
Everything, whatever I show, right? Everything will be in practical. I will cover less theoretical part. It more will be on practical sessions. So you have to practice with me on a daily basis. You have to practice because since I'm showing multiple scenarios, right, you have to practice all the scenarios. I cannot teach on the only one or two points. I have to teach in deep. Okay, so don't expect that every topic what I've mentioned here I will teach only on what do you say one or two lines. It's not like that. Okay, so you have to practice with me in order to be thorough and in order to understand the deep concepts of that particular each and every service. Okay, and for everything I have a PPT slides and all. If you see that, always I used to open this. Let me show you one example. You see this? These are the topics, PPTs which I prepare. I'll share with you. Okay, for each and every topic when we are discussing, right? I'll share the PPT slides. Okay, I'm still adding it actually. Okay, for every topic you can see here what is cloud computing, what is AWS startup, what is EC2, IAM, VPC, storage, database, storage, auto scaling group and load balancer, monitoring. For everything, I have PPT slides which are written with the points. You no need to write any notes and all. Don't waste your time in writing the notes. Try to spend more on practicing it. Once you practice it thoroughly from your end, right, it will register in your mind. Especially you no need to set a separate 1 hour or no need to spend more time on for interview. If since you already have some exposure to it, directly you can crack the interview. No need to spend some more time on it. Okay, so that's what I suggest. Try to practice more. That will register in your mind. Okay,
So when this course is going to start?
from today. From today actually, since there are new people who joined as didn't join the demo, I just gave some introduction like what we are trying to learn.
Okay, every day this same timings, right? From 8 to 9.
Same time, yeah, 8 to 9, yeah, exactly.
Okay, from Monday to Friday.
Monday to Friday, yeah, because some people are working employees, right? So I cannot put it on Saturday and Sunday, and I want to give some leisure time for the people to practice. Okay,
Daily 1
and it
hour
will be
class or?
weekly also, daily 1 hour, not more than 1 hour.
Okay.
It will
So
take
by
two
Hi
any,
months
Sudhir.
but I don't have any boundaries like I will complete only in 2 months. It may go to 2.5 months and all. Okay, so I'm not stick to the time boundaries and all. Okay, I have to complete within 2 months. By any cost, I have to rush much faster and complete that in 2 months. No, okay. Yeah, you're asking something.
Hi,
Location.
hi Sudhir. Yeah, hi Sudhir. So Sudhir, I'm not. I didn't join the the first class, but
Okay, it's just a demo.
uh,
That's it. I explain
hi.
more
Yeah.
about each and every service. Yeah.
So I just want to cross check. I'm from Delhi actually. So I just want
Okay.
to check. We will get any lab. I know that we will get the sessions recorded in case we are not able to
Yes,
join. So
lab,
every day we
I
will
will
get
tell
the
you
link.
the actual fact. AWS account we cannot create for everyone, right? It's a billing. That is for sure. What are the other things we can replicate in our local systems? Okay, you can see now all the things what I show is nothing but in Oracle VirtualBox. Here we will be creating a virtual machine and here we will be practicing it. Can you see the virtual machine which I have created? Here we will
Hmm.
practice it, the Git commands, other things, Jenkins installation, Terraform, Ansible, all these things we will be learning here only. It doesn't need a cloud or it doesn't need any environment for you. You have a local laptop, that's enough. With 4 GB RAM or something like that, that is enough for us to practice. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Other AWS account, you can create it on your own. You will have a one year free trial. I will show you how to use it so that there will be no billing generated. If a billing is generated also, it will be hardly 200 rupees or 300 rupees like that monthly. That is okay, right, for us.
Okay. Yeah.
Any other questions
Thank
before
you.
we start our actual sessions and all? Don't hesitate. One more suggestion. It's up to you. Don't hesitate. Okay, here no one knows anyone face, right? So don't hesitate. Don't feel shy in asking the questions. Okay, don't think that
Sudhir,
what this person will think about me, what this person will think about me. Okay, just ask your questions, whatever you have in your mind, even it is a
will,
silly question as well. Okay.
will there be any projects at the end of the course
Yes, we will be discussing the projects as well. There is one
for us to
application which is
practice?
designed, yeah, yeah, for us to practice in the real time. So it's not actual real time application, but we try to replicate it. And we will show you the automation process, manual process, okay, and the CI/CD pipeline which we built. Okay, that is our internal application of Visualpath, which is like vProfile. That is application which uses some Tomcat, okay, some RabbitMQ like messaging queue database in the backend. That application, okay. So we will see that in the automation process, manual and automation both.
Hello.
Any other questions, please? Don't hesitate. So yeah,
This
that's what I
is
meant to
Raghunath.
say. Yeah, Raghu.
Oh, sir. Basically, I'm from a non-IT background in mechanical.
Okay. Non-IT in the sense
This
like
session
from,
covers.
yeah.
Sir?
Have you worked anywhere or?
No, sir. Basically, in a couple of months, I will be leaving to London as my
Okay.
wife is IT person. This DevOps has
Okay.
a very good boom in the UK, so my friends told me to join a course. With this session, can
Okay.
I crack the interview?
Cracking the interview. See, I will be straightforward. Okay, cracking interview and all, it depends upon your practice what you do. Okay, I will
Yeah,
try
yes,
to focus more on explaining. That's a known fact, right? Which you also know it. Okay,
yes.
so to crack the interview, what are the necessary subject or the topics are needed that I will cover in deep. That's what I mean to say. Okay. You have to
Okay,
just concentrate and understand the scenario. Ask the questions if you are not understood anything. Couple of times if you want to repeat also, I can repeat it. Okay. The ultimate goal is we have to understand. You have to understand, not me. Right?
yes,
You
yes.
have to
Basically,
understand the
because I have
scenario.
main knowledge on programming and commands like that.
See, here we are not concentrating more on programming. Maybe hardly 5%. That's it. Okay.
Okay,
95% is all about your GUI and how do you install and how do you configure. Okay.
okay, okay. Thank you.
The only part we are learning is shell scripting. Okay. No questions, right? Yeah. So what I want to do is before starting anything, right? You have to understand about what is this virtual box, why I'm using it, and how to create a virtual machine in this to practice your Linux operating system related commands. Okay. Before I start this, any other questions last time? Uh, I think someone has asked something. No?
Yeah, hi Sudhir. What are
Hi.
the topics did you cover in Docker and Kubernetes? Did you cover Docker Swarm or
Docker
can you
Swarm we
share?
don't because it's not useful for us. Docker Swarm is not
Okay.
at all useful in IT industry, and Docker
Yes, yes.
machine is also not useful for us. Only Docker engine and Docker Compose is useful for us. I'll be teaching that. Okay.
Okay.
And in
Okay.
Kubernetes, we have to learn each and everything. We don't have anything that could be skipped. Okay.
Okay.
Like deployment, daemon set, stateful set, volumes, PVPVC, and secrets, config maps. There are so many things. It's a vast syllabus, right? Kubernetes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Okay. So before starting anything, first, if you have local laptops, okay, I hope everybody has some laptops and all. So what you can do is like, first you have to install this particular tools in your laptop. That is nothing but Oracle VirtualBox. Oracle VirtualBox. If you are familiar with VMware Workstation and all, you can use that. Okay. If no one is aware about any virtualization tool, why I'm using this one? Because I don't want to disturb my base operating system. I'm using Windows. You all know this, right? I'm using Windows. In my laptop, I cannot uninstall this particular Windows and install Linux operating system. I don't want to disturb this operating system, but still I want to practice Linux. So for that, we have to install this particular hypervisor, okay, which is nothing but Oracle VM VirtualBox. Okay, so to install that, go to the official link, go to downloads. Okay, in your laptop what operating system you are using, based on that click on that particular link. If you are using Windows, click on the first link. If you are using Mac OS, try to click on this. If you are using Linux, you can click on this Solaris and all. Okay, so try to download this package and just next. I know everybody knows how to install any application in Windows. Just download it .exe file, double click on that, next like that. It is so simple. Okay, once you install that, you will get a page like this. Okay, you will not see any VMs here. These three VMs what I'm showing here, you cannot see it. You will see only this one on the right hand side, and here it will be an empty page. That's it. Okay, for you, for the first time after installing it, you will see this one actually. Okay, from here we have to create a virtual machine. Before creating a virtual machine, we have to download ISO. We are practicing on Linux operating system, right? So in Linux we have different flavors: Red Hat, CentOS, Ubuntu, Debian, Linux Mint. Okay, and then we have so many Linux operating systems. But which is preferred one and which is the most easiest one to learn, and most of the industries we are using is Red Hat and Ubuntu. Okay, Red Hat is a licensed one. So instead of that, we will be using a Ubuntu operating system right now. Okay, so to download that particular Ubuntu ISO, we have to use a link called ubuntu Just directly search in Google like this. Okay, I will give you this search engine. So in Google, just search for this. Okay, Ubuntu server download 20.04. I will tell you all this. What is this Ubuntu 20.04? Why you have to download only that? I'll tell you all about this when we start about Linux operating system. Okay, so you have to download this one first. After that, you have to download this one. Go to the second link, click on this. I told you, right, there is a desktop version and server edition. You have to click only on this particular link. Okay, and it will download the ISO. I did so many times, so just use this particular link as well. So whatever the data I gave in the chat room, just save it in your notepad somewhere in your local system. Okay, and try to click on this link. It will download the ISO. Make this particular two things ready by tomorrow. Okay, when you come before to the class. Okay, then I will tell you how to create a virtual machine and how to install the operating system inside that. First, you have to know how to install it manually. Then you will come to know how to do it through automation. But first of all, you have to understand how to do it manually. Okay, because if I want to practice Linux, I have to have that particular Linux operating system installed, right? So that is what we are doing right now. Okay, so we'll see that tomorrow. Just make sure you have installed your Oracle VirtualBox and make sure that you have downloaded the server install image of Ubuntu. Okay, so yeah, that's what I mean to say for today. I just want to go in, I don't want to go today itself for everything. So just make it ready and tomorrow we'll talk about that. Okay, so any questions, you can still stay back and ask me the questions. Don't hesitate. Don't think that what other people will think. Just what you have in your mind, just put it on the plate. That's it. Okay, don't hesitate, because once you complete the course, you may not once you start practicing there, you might fall into some issues. Okay, so instead of asking questions at the end, try to practice from now and ask the questions without any hesitation. Okay, keep your shy and everything at the side. Okay, so focus on your subject. That's it.
So we are getting this recorded session daily, right? Every day.
Yes, it will be uploaded to the portal, and that portal URL will be given to you. You have to log in with your username, password, and you will see the recording videos. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you guys. Thanks for joining the session. And tomorrow we will start from the actual topics. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you,
all.
Sudhir.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you.